The flicker of torchlight danced along the cool stone of the Red Keep's deepest corridors as Varys, master of whisperers, moved with his usual soundless step. The hall was empty, the hour late. Only the distant patter of rain on the ramparts disturbed the hush. Varys drew his lavender robes closer about him, pausing a moment by a narrow arrow slit. King's Landing was a black sea of rooftops and mud, flickering here and there with dying lanterns. The city slept uneasily, as it had every night since the king's last drunken hunt. But the keep itself was wide awake, teeming with secrets behind every closed door. And tonight, one secret would change everything. He heard the sentries before he saw them, 2 guards in Baratheon, black and gold, posted outside the king's chambers. Varys inclined his head with a courtier's smile, gliding past as if summoned on some trivial errand. One guard looked askance, but the eunuch was a familiar sight, and not, to their minds, a threat. He waited until the door closed behind him, then stopped in the gloom of the king's solar. Robert Baratheon stood at the hearth, massive and swaying, a goblet in hand and wine staining his beard. His eyes were clouded, but not so drunk as usual. He recognized the spider at once, and gestured with a careless flourish. "Varys," he said, his voice a growl half choked with laughter. "Come to whisper in my ear, have you? The hour's late for schemes?" "My apologies, your grace." Varys bowed low, holding the pose a breath longer than usual. The flames painted Robert's face with gold and shadow. "It is because the hour is late that I bring what I must. Your grace is surrounded by enemies, though some may wear the faces of friends." Robert laughed, loud and ugly. "Every king is, so my father told me. Out with it. I've no patience for riddles tonight. Is it Stannis again? Or Renly, sniffing after the small council scraps?" Varys's eyes glittered in the firelight. "It is neither your brothers nor your counselors I fear, your grace. It is your queen and her kin." The king's face twisted, but Varys pressed on before the anger could ignite. "The Lannisters have hidden much from you. Treasons, deceptions, secrets that, if left untold, may destroy not only your reign, but your very life." Robert drank deep, then slammed the goblet down. "If you've come to spit venom at Cersei, you'll need more than whispers. I know her nature well enough, I think." Varys took a step closer. "Perhaps, but do you know her crimes? Her true affections? The dangers her brothers pose? My little birds have brought me truths, not rumors. I beg your grace, hear me out, for the safety of the realm and your line." No. Robert studied him for a long moment, then let out a bitter sigh. "Speak. And if this is another of Littlefinger's games." Varys inclined his head. "I serve the realm, your grace, as always." He moved to the king's side, voice low but steady. "The Lannisters have kept secrets from you. Secrets about your children, about the deaths of your friends, and the very nature of your rule. It is not a single crime, but a tapestry of them, woven over years." Robert stared at him, lips parted, half daring him to continue. Varys did not flinch. "It is not my place to name the fathers of princes, nor to question the loyalty of a queen. But you have trusted the Lannisters. You have given them power, believing them to be your shield. They are your greatest peril. Shall I be plain, your grace?" A great silence settled. Rain lashed the windows, and the king seemed to shrink beneath his crown. "Be plain," he said at last, in a voice hoarse as a broken horn. Varys nodded. "The queen's children are not yours, but born of incest. Her brothers are her lovers. The death of Jon Arryn was not nature's hand, but poison. Poison brewed by Lannister will. And there is more. Plots against your loyal men, the warping of justice, the buying of oaths." For a heartbeat, Robert said nothing. Then the goblet was flying, crashing against the hearth. "Lies," he roared. "You think I'm blind? I see enough. But this is madness, Varys." The eunuch never blinked. "Madness or truth? I have proof. Letters. Witnesses. There are men who know the truth, Eddard Stark among them. Ask him, your grace. Confront the queen if you dare. But do not wait. Every hour you dally, the vipers coil closer." "Ow." Robert's face had gone white. the rage draining from him, leaving only shock. My children, my heirs. He looked like a man about to retch. If you're wrong, if I am wrong, your grace, kill me. But if I am right, act now, or the Lannisters will destroy you. There is more. Shall I speak? Robert slumped into his chair, waving a hand. Speak. So Varys did. He spoke of Jaime Lannister's presence at the Trident when the Mad King was slain, of the whispered boasts among the gold cloaks about Lannister gold buying their captains, of Maester Pycelle's quiet obedience to Cersei's every whim. He spoke of a stable boy in Casterly Rock, missing since he glimpsed things he ought not to have seen, of a cupbearer in the Tower of the Hand, silenced before he could tell his tale. He spoke, too, of Bran Stark's fall at Winterfell, and of rumors that it was not a simple accident but a failed murder, meant to hush a boy who saw what he should not. All the while, Robert listened, hunched and silent, a king in name only, stripped bare by the secrets of his court. When Varys finished, there was a long, ugly silence, broken only by the crackle of the fire. How much does Eddard know? Robert whispered. Enough, your grace, though he has not spoken all to you. He is a loyal friend. He would protect you, even from the pain of truth. Robert's hand trembled as he reached for the wine, found none, and let it fall. If this is true, all is lost. Cersei, Jaime, all of it. My son, Joffrey, he's not. Varys bowed his head. No, your grace. Not of your blood. The king stared at him with wild, hunted eyes. What do you want, Varys? Why tell me now? Varys's answer was soft. I want only peace, your grace. A realm without war, without betrayal. You are the king. Only you can cleanse this rot before it festers into open war. The rain beat harder. Robert rose unsteadily, gripping the mantle. Get out. Leave me. Summon Ned Stark. Now. Varys bowed and was gone. He slipped into the corridors like a shadow, leaving the king's fury to ferment. As he drifted toward the Tower of the Hand, he passed by a pair of Lannister guards, stiff-backed and wary. Varys' mind was already working. Shaping events, choosing his next words with care. If Robert acted swiftly, there would be blood. If he hesitated, the Lannisters would sniff out the danger, and their knives would be quick. For all his web of secrets, even Varys could not foresee every move. The game was in motion, and the price of miscalculation would be death, for all. Within the hour, Eddard Stark was roused from uneasy sleep and summoned to the king's chambers. His face was grim, and he brought with him a silent dread, as if some doom had been foretold in the northern godswood. Robert greeted him with red eyes, and a voice raw from drink and rage. Varys watched from the corner as the king pressed Ned for the truth. It was a brutal interrogation, made no softer by old friendship or the memory of battlefields. Ned resisted, tried to counsel patience, but Robert was past patience, drunk on anger and the shock of betrayal. She's lied to me for years, Ned, the king bellowed. All of them. Did you know? Did you? Ned bowed his head. I suspected, your grace. I wanted proof before I spoke. Robert struck the arm of his chair with a meaty fist. I have proof. The spider brought it. Letters, witnesses, enough to hang them all. Now. He turned, and Varys felt the weight of the king's madness pressing on the room like a storm. If this is true, what do I do? Joffrey's not my son. My queen, my wife, has bedded her own brother. I will not be made a fool, Ned. Ned said nothing, but his face was grave. You are the king. You must act for the good of the realm. The Lannisters will not yield quietly. Robert sagged, the fight seeping from him. I loved her once. Before all this. Before the crown. I thought... He broke off, shaking his head. No matter. I want Cersei confined. Jaime arrested. The children, bring them here. No one leaves the Red Keep. No one. Varys bowed, but Ned spoke first. Let me handle it, your grace. Give me your leave and your trust. I will see it done with as little blood as possible. The king nodded, staring into the fire. Do it. and gods have mercy on us all. And so, Varys left the chamber, his mind racing. The next moves had to be perfect. The Lannisters would not sit idle once they sensed the trap closing. He needed allies, silence, and luck. He found Petyr Baelish in the treasury, poring over accounts by candlelight. "Lord Baelish," Varys purred. "The king requires your counsel." Littlefinger arched a brow. "The hour is late for numbers, Lord Varys. What is amiss?" Varys smiled. "All honey and silk. A great many things, I fear. The king seeks loyal men for a difficult task. Might I count on your discretion?" Baelish's eyes narrowed, calculating. "You may count on my discretion as you would on the honesty of a Lysine whore?" "What is it, Varys? Some coup?" The eunuch inclined his head. "Not a coup. A reckoning." He departed before Baelish could press further, leaving the seeds of doubt to germinate. Varys needed chaos, not order. Confusion would be his ally as much as secrecy. The following morning, the Red Keep awoke to a changed world. Servants whispered of arguments in the king's chambers. Gold cloaks massed at the gates, and the Lannister guards looked to their captains for orders. The king's men, those few not bought by Lannister gold, moved with purpose, rounding up the queen's favorites, locking doors and seizing the city's gates. Cersei Lannister awoke to find herself confined to her rooms, her ladies dismissed, her guards replaced by Baratheon men. She demanded to see the king, but was rebuffed with cold formality. Jaime too was watched, though not yet arrested. The children were brought to the king, under heavy guard. Robert met Cersei in the Solar, with Ned Stark beside him, and Sir Barristan Selmy standing watch. Varys lingered in the shadows, unseen, his presence an unspoken threat. The queen's eyes flashed with fury and scorn. "You would lock me in my own home, Robert." "I am your queen." Robert's voice was hard as winter. "You are my wife, and the mother of my children. Or so I believed. The spiders told me tales. Tales I would see proven or denied." Cersei's mask did not slip. "The spider tells tales to all who pay him." "Shall I name all your bastards, Robert? Shall I call the city to witness your own infidelities?" The king rose. "Do not trifle with me, woman. Did you think me blind or just a fool?" Ned laid a calming hand on Robert's arm. "Your Grace, let us proceed with care." Robert shook him off. "I want the truth, Cersei. Did you bed your brother? Are my children mine?" Cersei did not answer. Her silence was more damning than any confession. Sir Barristan's face was grave as stone. Varys watched, silent, as the queen stared the king down, her green eyes bright as wildfire. "I am your queen," she repeated. "What I have done for my family. If you mean to kill me, do it. But know this, the Lannisters do not forgive. Nor do we forget." Robert reeled as if struck. Ned spoke quickly. "Your Grace, I beg you, let the queen be confined until the truth is established. Let us avoid bloodshed. The children are innocents." Robert nodded, wordless. He was a beaten man, for all his size and bluster. "Confine her. Keep Jaime under guard, and send for Tywin Lannister. If he means to start a war, let him start it in my sight." Varys slipped away, leaving chaos in his wake. The realm would not recover soon, if ever. Already, riders galloped from the Red Keep, bearing secret messages to Casterly Rock and to the Eyrie. Already, the city's lords whispered in their halls, weighing new loyalties, new betrayals. The Lannisters would not go quietly. Blood would be spilled before the end. In his secret chambers, Varys watched as his little birds flitted in and out, bringing scraps of news, warnings of plots and counterplots. The game had changed, and for once, even the spider did not know who would win. He thought of the children, locked behind heavy doors, of Ned Stark, grim and noble, straining to preserve peace where none could be found, of Robert Baratheon, broken by truth at last, his crown a millstone, of Cersei, her pride unbroken, plotting revenge. The wheel was turning, and all would be crushed beneath it. Yet Varys had done what he must. The truth, once spoken, could not be recalled. Secrets ruled the realm, and for one night at least, the Master of Secrets had wielded them like a blade. Outside, the rain ceased. The sky brightened with the first gray hints of dawn, but inside the Red Keep, darkness lingered. The realm would not know peace for many days to come, but Varys, for all his webs, felt the cold bite of uncertainty. The Lannisters would answer, and when they did, the city would burn. In the hour before dawn, the Red Keep was neither silent nor at peace. The corridors were full of the hard, measured tread of armored men, the nervous skitter of servants sent from bed to new duties, and the echo of orders too urgent to be trusted to quills and parchment. Varys walked softly through it all, unnoticed by most, but not by all. There were eyes in the keep, sharp and bright, red with anger or rimmed with tears. The game had begun in earnest, and the pieces moved fast and hard across the board. In the Tower of the Hand, Ned Stark stood at his window, wrapped in a cloak against the faint chill, looking out over the city as the horizon bruised to purple and gold. He had not slept. The secrets Varys had unveiled, some confirmed, others merely whispered, spun in his mind like leaves in a winter storm. He thought of Catelyn and the Eyrie, of Sansa and Arya sleeping somewhere in this vast, treacherous maze of stone, of the boys so far away in Winterfell. He thought of Robert, a king hollowed out by his own appetites and the betrayal of those closest to him. He thought, most of all, of the blood that would soon follow these revelations, blood that would seep into every crack of the Seven Kingdoms. A knock sounded at his door, a brisk rap, and he turned. It was Sir Barristan Selmy, white cloak immaculate, face drawn with worry. "My lord," Selmy said quietly, "the king requests you. The queen is in her chambers. Her brother remains within the Tower of the White Sword, under guard. Lord Tywin is not yet summoned, but messages have been sent. The gold cloaks are uneasy. Some say you mean to arrest half the court." "Bender, I mean to do what honor demands," Ned replied, voice flat. "We must hold the peace, Sir Barristan. If blood is shed in the halls, there'll be war before the sun is high." Selmy nodded, his mouth a thin, grim line. "The gold cloaks follow Sir Janos Slynt, and Slynt follows Coin. We have precious little time." Together, they made their way to the king's solar. Ned felt the weight of 100 stairs, but none dared speak as they passed. They found Robert slumped at a long table, head in his hands, an untouched trencher of bread before him. He looked up, face pale and stubbled, and Ned saw a man not just betrayed but adrift, battered by loss. "Did you sleep, Ned?" Robert rasped. "No, your grace. Nor I. It's all lies, isn't it? Must be. It has to be. But I see it when I close my eyes. Jaime and Cersei, the children, the whole cursed lot of them. 7 hells, I'm a king. But I was never a husband, was I?" Ned said nothing. There was no comfort to offer. At length, Robert wiped his mouth, gestured for wine, and when it arrived, waved it away. "I want her gone," he said quietly. "The queen, sent to Casterly Rock, or to the wall for all I care. Jaime too, and the children. What do I do with them, Ned? They're not mine, but I raise them as if they were." "They are innocent of the sins of their mother," Ned said. Robert's knuckles whitened on the edge of the table. "And what of the realm? If I put them aside, there's no heir but Stannis, and the Lannisters will howl for war. Stannis is your brother. He'll rule justly, if not kindly. But the city must be held, your grace, and the Lannisters contained. If Tywin marches, I'll not have civil war. Not again. Not after all we bled for this throne. Then you must act swiftly, and with strength." Robert nodded, eyes bleak. "Tell Slynt to keep the gates closed. No one leaves the city without my leave. Place trusted men at the doors, and bring me the queen. I'll face her myself and let the gods judge between us." Ned bowed, then hesitated. "Let me speak to her first, your grace. She may yet yield quietly. There's no need for a spectacle." The king made a sound between a snort and a sob. You always want to spare them, Ned. It's your curse. Ned left, heart heavy, and made his way through the keep. The Lannister quarters were in an uproar. Servants hustling about with drawn faces, guards on edge, hands hovering above hilts. Sir Boros Blount, resplendent in white, stood watch at the Queen's door. "Lord Stark to see her grace," Ned said, voice level. Blount hesitated, then admitted him. Cersei stood at the window, hair unbound, still in her nightgown, but her eyes were hard and cold as cut emeralds. She did not turn as he entered. "Come to gloat, Stark? Or is this the part where you pretend sympathy?" "I come to warn you," Ned said. "The king knows all. He means to confine you and your brother, send the children away for their safety. If you yield quietly, no harm will come to them." She laughed, low and bitter. "Yield quietly? And what? Wait in chains for Tywin to rescue me? For you and your northern wolves to sit the Iron Throne, while my family's heads rot on spikes? No one need die, Cersei. The king is a drunken fool." She spat. "You know it. You, most of all. Why did you come here, Stark? To offer mercy? Your mercy is a blade in the dark. You think you're so noble, so upright. But you're just like the rest of them. You want power, and you'll have it once my family's broken." "Now?" Ned shook his head. "I want only peace. If you care for your children, you'll let this be settled without blood." She spun, gold hair wild, eyes blazing. "You speak of peace as you put the knife to my throat. No, Stark, I will not kneel, and I will not be caged. Tell your king I will see him. One last time. But I promise you, if he means to strike at me, he will bleed for it." Ned saw then, for all her pride, that fear lurked beneath. He withdrew, instructing the guards to watch her closely, but not to use force unless she attempted escape. As he departed, he glanced back through the cracked door, saw her standing rigid, lips moving in silent fury, plotting her countermove. He returned to Robert. "She'll see you," he said. "But be wary. She will not go quietly." Robert stood, summoned his guards, and strode to Cersei's rooms, Ned at his side. The Queen greeted him not with fear, but with regal defiance, chin high, mouth curled in disdain. "So, here you are at last, Robert. Come to claim your prize." The king glared at her, voice ragged. "The lies end here. I know what you've done, what you and Jaime have done. Your children were never mine. You have shamed me, shamed this crown, shamed the realm. What do you say to that?" She did not flinch. "What I did to protect my children. Your bastards fill the city, but you never loved me, Robert. You loved your wars, your whoring, your ale. I made a life for myself, as you made yours. But I will not be cast aside, not by you, not by any man." "Then no." Robert's voice rose. "You will be confined, and your brother with you, until Lord Tywin answers for your crimes. The children will be taken to Dragonstone, where they'll be safe." Cersei's lips twisted. "And when my father marches, will you slaughter my children to prove your justice? Your father would burn the realm before yielding. I know that, but I am king. Let him come if he dares." Cersei laughed, wild and sharp. "You are a king in name only. The Lannisters are the true power here, and always have been. Kill me, and you'll have nothing but ashes." She spat at his feet. Robert turned, face mottled with rage, and stormed out, Ned following. In the corridor, the king sagged against the wall. "Shall fight," he muttered. "Tywin will march. What have I done, Ned? I wanted peace. Just peace." "Nentermanero." Ned put a hand on his shoulder. "It's not too late, your grace. We hold the keep, the city. We must send word to Stannis Renly, and call the lords to council. The Lannisters cannot stand against all the realm." Robert nodded, but Ned saw despair in his eyes. In the days that followed, the Red Keep was a fortress under siege. Not from without, but from the fear and suspicion that choked every hall. Cersei remained confined. Jaime under guard in the White Sword Tower. Their movements watched and restricted. The children were separated. Joffrey raged and wept in turn. Tommen asked for his mother. Myrcella sat silently, her eyes too old for her years. Varys made himself scarce, appearing only when summoned, but his whispers reached every ear that mattered. He sowed doubt among the gold cloaks, uncertainty among the small council, fear among the city's merchants and craftsmen. Who will rule if Robert falls? The whispers asked. If Tywin comes, will the city burn? Littlefinger moved like a serpent through the chaos, smiling and soothing, offering loans, making promises, gathering secrets. He met with Varys late one night in the rookery, where the smell of bird droppings and old parchment mingled in the dark. You've set fire to the city, Lord Varys, Littlefinger whispered, and now you hope the flames will burn only the Lannisters. How quaint. Varys inclined his head. Better flames than poison, Lord Baelish. Better open war than quiet murder. The realm has rotted from within long enough. Baelish laughed. The realm has always rotted. You're just hoping to pick the bones clean before the maggots get them. Varys smiled and said nothing. On the third day, a raven arrived from Casterly Rock. The seal was broken by Robert himself, and the contents read aloud to the council. To his grace, Robert, first of his name, King of the Andals, the Rhoynar and the First Men, Tywin Lannister wrote, It grieves me to hear of my daughter's confinement and the insult done to my house. I demand her release, the return of my son, and safe passage for my grandchildren. Any further harm to them will be met with fire and steel. The lions of Casterly Rock do not yield. Robert flung the letter into the fire, cursing. Ned sat silent, weighing the next move. Stannis too had been summoned, and Renly, and both were en route to the city with what men they could muster. The small council was fractious. Pycelle counseled negotiation, citing the cost of war and the Lannister coffers that kept the city fed. Renly, when he arrived, demanded immediate action, arguing for preemptive strikes against known Lannister allies in the city. Stannis, grim as always, called for a court of inquiry, arrests, and summary justice. Justice must be seen, Stannis growled, or the realm will never heal. The queen, her brother, their children, if guilty, let them stand trial. Let the gods judge. Ned agreed, though his heart ached for the children. Robert listened, but more and more his gaze was distant, unfocused, as if haunted by ghosts only he could see. On the fifth day, as dawn broke hot and sullen, word came that a Lannister force was on the march from Casterly Rock. 3,000 men at arms, 200 knights, all in crimson and gold. Tywin's banner flew high, and rumor placed Jaime's cousin Stafford at their head. Robert called the lords to council once more. The hall was full. Lords, knights, small folk, all hungry for news, for reassurance, for a show of strength. The king stood before them, not in armor, but in his hunting leathers, crown askew, face haggard. My lords, he began, we are at the brink. The Lannisters threaten war, and my house is divided. I will not see the realm torn apart by ambition and treachery. The queen and her brother stand accused of grievous crimes. They will be tried, not murdered. The children will be protected. But I ask you now, stand with me, or stand aside. The lords murmured, some uneasy, others eager for battle. Renly stepped forward, green cloak bright. The realm must see justice done, brother. Let the lords witness the trial. Let all know that no house stands above the law. Menmarwand. Stannis nodded, and the other lords, one by one, voiced assent. The trial was set for 2 days hence, to be held in the throne room. Varys watched the preparations with cool detachment, but inwardly he worried. The Lannisters would not wait for justice to play out in the hands of others. Cersei was no longer a queen, but she was still dangerous, and Jaime more so, a caged lion waiting for his moment. Varys sent birds to every corner of the city, trusted men among the gold cloaks, eyes and ears in every inn and stable. He bribed, threatened, pleaded, and plotted. He instructed his little birds to watch the walls, the gates, the docks. If Tywin's men approached, he would know before the first trumpet sounded. On the eve of the trial, Ned visited Cersei. She sat at her table, dressed in black, eyes ringed with shadows but still proud. "You have a chance, Cersei," he said. "Tell the truth. Admit your crimes, and the king may yet spare your life. If you lie, if you attempt escape, there will be no mercy." She laughed. "You're a fool, Stark. Mercy is a word for weak men. When the lions come, you'll see what mercy means." He turned to go. She called after him, voice sharp. "My father is coming. My son will be king one day, and you and your kind will answer for what you've done." Ned did not answer. The morning of the trial dawned clear and hot, banners snapping above the keep. The city alive with rumor and dread. The throne room was packed. Lords, knights, small folk, all straining to see the high table where the king sat, flanked by his brothers, his hand, and the lords of the council. Cersei was brought in, pale and proud, in chains. Jaime was at her side, wrists shackled, face unreadable. The children were kept away, hidden and protected. Though word of the proceedings would reach them soon enough. The charges were read: incest, treason, conspiracy to murder the king, the Hand, and Jon Arryn. The evidence was laid out, witnesses brought forth, servants who had seen things, letters in Cersei's hand, gold cloaks who testified to Lannister bribes. Cersei did not speak, except to deny all. Jaime said nothing, his eyes fixed on his sister, his jaw clenched. The lords debated, voices rising, accusations flying. Tywin's letter was read again, a threat and a promise of vengeance. Stannis called for justice, Renly for caution, Pycelle for mercy, Varys for peace. In the end, it was Robert who decided. He stood, voice heavy with sorrow and rage. "The realm has been betrayed by those closest to me. The queen and her brother are guilty of high treason. They will be confined until sentence is passed. The children will be cared for as innocents until they come of age or the truth is known." "No." He looked at Ned, then at the lords, and for a moment he seemed the king he once had been. "We must hold together, or all is lost." The crowd murmured, some in relief, others in anger. The trial was over, but the war had only begun. That night, Varys walked the walls, watching the torches burn in the darkness. In the city below, the people whispered of lions and wolves, of justice and blood. Far to the west, Tywin Lannister's army marched, banners bright against the setting sun. The realm trembled, perched on the edge of chaos, waiting for the storm to break. And in the shadows, the Master of Whispers listened and waited and hoped, for the realm, and for himself, that the price of truth would not prove too high. Gandhi. The night before sentence, King's Landing was restless. Thunder rumbled off the distant stormlands, and the city shivered beneath a tense, electric sky. In the Red Keep, the air was thick with apprehension and the sour tang of coming blood. Varys stood at his chamber window, listening to the susurrus of rain beginning to tap on the slate roofs below, and felt the weave of his web pulled tight as a strangler's garrote. Word had come not an hour before. Tywin's host had passed the Gold Road, and scouts reported columns of steel snaking eastward, banners glinting red and gold under iron clouds. Elsewhere, Ned Stark tried, and failed, to rest. His window was dark, but his mind was ablaze, haunted by every warning Maester Luwin had ever given him about the nature of Southern justice, and by Catelyn's voice in memory, urging caution. He kept thinking of his daughters, Arya too wild to be contained, Sansa heartbreakingly fragile, and of the boy Joffrey, whose birthright now teetered on the edge of a sword. All his life Ned had been a man who acted, a man who moved decisively for honor's sake. Yet now he felt as if the very air would break if he reached out his hand. Justice and mercy were at war inside him, and all the world waited for which would win. It was past midnight when a soft knock sounded at his door. For an instant, his heart hammered with old northern superstitions, ghosts, assassins, wights, and then he heard the calm voice of Sir Barristan Selmy. "My Lord Hand, you are needed. There is news from the gates." Ned pulled on his cloak and followed, boots whispering over cold stone. Selmy led him through passageways bristling with Baratheon guards, and notably, few Lannister faces. The scent of oil and sweat, of damp wool and fear, clung to the walls. They descended to the king's private audience chamber, where Robert waited with Stannis and Renly. Varys glided in from the shadows, his expression as placid as still water. "They come," Stannis announced, voice like gravel. "Lord Tywin's outriders are camped 3 miles off. By morning they'll have the gates in sight." "Does he send terms?" Robert demanded. "Only threats," Renly said, tossing a scrap of parchment onto the table. "He swears holy war if any harm comes to Cersei or the children. Gold flows like water in the city already, buying every blade it can reach." Robert's eyes glittered. "Let him come. I won't be cowed in my own hall by a lion's roar." Varys cleared his throat delicately. "The city must not be seen to bow, your grace. But if blood runs, it will not stop. There are Lannister men in every street, gold among the gold cloaks, even in the kitchens. And your own house, Stannis, Renly, does not stand united." "Then?" Robert scowled. "Then I'll unite it or break it. The trial will proceed at sunrise. Afterward, I want the Lannister host parleyed. Let Tywin look his daughter in the eye and see what her ambition has wrought." They broke apart. Ned returned to his chambers, but sleep would not come. He sat through the slow drip of hours, listening to the wind beat rain against his shutters, until finally the bells tolled the hour before dawn. He rose, dressed in the black and gray of House Stark, and steeled himself for what must follow. As the first hint of light bled into the city, the throne room filled with watchers, lords and knights in somber finery, courtiers clutching the arms of their seats, even merchants and septons crowding the gallery, all come to see the wheel of fortune turn. Robert sat the Iron Throne, crown askew, flanked by Stannis and Renly, by Sir Barristan and Lord Stark, by Pycelle and Varys and Littlefinger. Each man a reflection of the kingdom's soul, fierce, proud, weary, cunning, frightened. The accused were led in by grim-faced guards. Cersei wore a gown of midnight blue, her hair brushed and loose, but her eyes rimmed red from sleepless fury. Jaime walked beside her, unbowed and arrogant despite the shackles, his gold hair falling over his brow like a lion's mane. Neither would meet the other's gaze. Behind them, the city's hush was broken only by the soft sobbing of Myrcella, held fast by 2 handmaids at the rear of the chamber, and the stifled whimpers of Tommen. Joffrey stood between 2 knights, face white with rage and terror, every inch the king he believed himself to be, and yet so obviously the child. The charges were read aloud, each word an accusation that echoed off the pillars. Incest, treason, conspiracy to murder the king and the Hand, the poisoning of Jon Arryn, attempted murder of Bran Stark. Cersei listened in silence, chin high, only her fingers betraying her as they gripped the arms of her chair so tightly the knuckles blanched. Varys presented evidence, the confessions of servants, the written records, the testimony of Maester Pycelle, who sweated and prevaricated, but under the king's glare revealed all he knew. Ned stood to add his own voice, laying out the logic of bloodlines and the shape of the children's faces. There was no bravado, only sadness as he spoke, but his words were arrows. Jaime denied nothing, merely smiling with the arrogance of a man who has lost the game and knows the pieces are already swept away. When the witnesses were done, Robert called on Cersei and Jaime to answer. Cersei rose, gathering every shred of Lannister pride about her like a cloak. Her voice, when it came, was steady as the wind off the rock. "Do you condemn me for loving my brother Robert? You, who filled half the brothels of King's Landing and sired a score of bastards. You want to kill me for what you never cared to give? Do it then. But know this, the lions will never kneel." Jaime said nothing at all. His gaze swept the assembled lords, lingered on Ned Stark a heartbeat, then flickered to his sister and was gone. Robert's hands shook. He looked to his council, to his brothers, and finally to Ned. For a moment, the hall was utterly silent. Then Stannis spoke. "Guilt is proven. The sentence must follow. Justice cannot wait for the convenience of House Lannister." Renly, more gently, added, "We must not let vengeance blind us. The children will be spared," Robert growled. "They are innocent, though their blood is tainted." He fixed Cersei with a look so full of fury and grief it seemed to hollow him out. "As for you and your brother, I name you traitors. You will be confined until such time as you are removed from the city, to stand trial before the lords of the realm. I will not stain my reign with the blood of my queen or my own kin, but justice will be done." "Damn?" Cersei's laugh was cold and sharp as glass. "You have no justice, Robert, only fear." With that, the sentence was passed. The guards led Cersei and Jaime away. Myrcella and Tommen were taken to Maegor's Holdfast. Joffrey to his rooms with only Sir Boros Blount for company. The crowd, denied the spectacle of royal blood, muttered and dispersed, leaving the court brittle and raw. The small council convened at Robert's command. He was wild-eyed, his hands trembling as he gripped his goblet, voice ragged. "We must meet Tywin before the gates. Ned, you will go in my name. Show him mercy if he will take it. Tell him the queen lives, the children are safe. If he will have peace, let him kneel and ask for it." Ned bowed, understanding the cost of mercy, and summoned a dozen trusted men to ride with him. As they prepared to depart, Varys intercepted Ned in the yard. His tone was soft, urgent. "Take care, my lord. Tywin is not a man to be shamed before the world. He will not yield lightly." Ned regarded him gravely. "There is no other road. If peace can be had, I will find it. If not, then war will come and Winterfell will answer." Varys bowed. "I will do what I can, my lord. There are still many eyes in the city, and not all of them loyal to the crown." The gates opened at mid-morning, and Ned Stark rode out at the head of his company. The gold road shimmered with heat as the Lannister army came into view. A vast river of steel and banners, archers and pikemen, knights in full harness, the Red Lion rampant flying high. Lord Tywin himself rode at their head, his face like a mask carved from old ivory, eyes as hard as river stones. Tywin did not dismount as Ned approached, but only inclined his head. His words were cool and precise. "Lord Stark, I am come for my daughter, my son, and my grandchildren. I am come for justice." Ned met that gaze with one forged in northern winter. "They live, my lord. No harm will come to them, but justice must be seen. The Queen and Sir Jaime are to be tried before the lords of the realm. The children are safe in Maegor's Holdfast, as hostages for the peace." Tywin's lip curled. "You presume much, Stark. Blood has ever followed Lannister insult. Release them, and perhaps my anger may be sated." Ned shook his head. "That is not possible. If you draw sword, you doom your house. The realm will not suffer another war of succession." For a long moment, Tywin said nothing. But behind him, knights fidgeted in their saddles, hands tight on reins. Then, at last, he nodded. "Very well, Lord Stark. If it is trial you wish, you shall have it. But know this, the lion does not forgive. I will see my daughter's face again, one way or another, and if she falls, the city will burn before I am done." Ned returned to the city, his heart heavy. In the streets, tension simmered. Lannister banners had appeared on a dozen doorways. Gold cloaks eyed their fellows with suspicion, and rumors ran faster than fire. Robert summoned his council again, demanding plans for the defense, for the dispersal of the children, for the rooting out of Lannister men in the city. Stannis pressed for swift judgment. Renly counseled caution. Varys recommended diplomacy, and Littlefinger watched, smiling his knife-blade smile. As dusk fell, a riot broke out near Cobbler's Square. A rumor that the Queen's men were poisoning the wells set the mob to frenzy. 3 gold cloaks died before the city guard restored order. Varys' spies reported Lannister gold was at work, feeding panic, inciting chaos. Robert grew more frantic, roaring for heads, for loyalty, for certainty. Ned moved quietly, gathering his men. sending word north for more troops, meeting in secret with the captains of the city watch. He kept Sansa and Arya close, though the former wept for Joffrey and the latter glared at every Lannister she saw. Each hour, he felt the city's foundations shifting, as if the Red Keep itself might collapse into the sea. On the day of the Grand Council, the Lords of the Realm crowded the throne room. Tyrells, Arryns, Martells, even old Lord Tully, brought downriver at great expense. Tywin Lannister stood at the foot of the throne, unbent and unbowed, his eyes on his daughter, who sat beside Jaime in chains. The children watched from the gallery, silent, pale, brittle as glass. The council was chaos. Accusations, defenses, threats, bargains. Pycelle swore to the queen's innocence. Renly demanded her execution. Stannis called for exile, and the lords shouted for gold or glory. Only Ned stood silent, watching the game unfold. When the tumult died, Robert stood. His face was old and lined, eyes red from too many sleepless nights. I have heard the evidence. I have seen the hearts of men and women laid bare before me. The queen and her brother are guilty of treason, but I will not kill them. They are to be exiled, to Casterly Rock, under guard, until the gods see fit to judge them. The children will remain as guests of the crown, fostered at Dragonstone and Riverrun, until peace is certain. Now, the Lord shouted, but Robert raised his hand. Let it be done. If Tywin Lannister draws steel in defiance, let all the realm know who brings blood. I am king, and my mercy will stand. Tywin glared, but he bowed his head. As you command, your grace. The lion will wait. The prisoners were led away. The children escorted to Maegor's Holdfast. The city breathed, but the breath was shallow, fearful. Ned returned to his rooms, Sansa and Arya beside him, and sat with them in silence as the storm finally broke over King's Landing. Varys, in the gloom of his chambers, listened to the thunder and the far-off shouts of men. He wondered if he had saved the realm or only delayed its ruin. But for one night, at least, the city did not burn. The wheel turned, and the game continued, and the Master of Whispers waited, as ever, for what the dawn would bring. Ka. All night, the storm battered the city, soaking the stones and beating the banners flat against their poles. But the rain could not wash away the tensions within the Red Keep. By morning, the air was close and heavy, every chamber alive with the memory of thunder. In Maegor's Holdfast, Sansa Stark lay awake and trembling on her narrow bed. Arya snored on a pallet nearby, blade beneath her pillow. But Sansa heard every scrape in the corridor, every distant boot. She dreamed of home, green godswood and gentle voices, but awoke to this cold maze, her fate wound tight with the children of her father's enemy. In the heart of the keep, Ned Stark stood by a window, his breath fogging the glass. Below, the yard crawled with guards in Baratheon colors, new men brought in from the Stormlands and the Riverlands, their loyalty bought with gold and the king's promise. Ned saw Lannister men too, those who'd survived the night's purges, standing rigid as statues, watching, always watching. It was a city with two souls now, he thought. One trembling, one coiled to strike. Varys was everywhere and nowhere. His little birds darted through the kitchens, the stables, the dark nooks behind the tapestries. He whispered to Maester Pycelle, who fretted at his ravens and dosed himself with sweet sleep. He slipped into the solar where Renly brooded over maps, and into the yard where Janos Slynt inspected new recruits, and he lingered in the council chamber as the king's hand, weary and gray, met with Stannis and Ser Barristan. Always he watched, and always he listened. The city held its breath, waiting for Tywin Lannister's answer. Robert Baratheon did not sleep. He drank and raged, cursed the gods, and haunted the echoing halls of his keep. Once, he strode to Maegor's Holdfast to see his children, the children head raised as his own, who now seemed strangers to him. But he stood in the shadow of the door unseen, and did not enter. Instead, he stormed back to his solar and smashed a chair against the wall, then slumped to the floor and wept, great shuddering sobs that shook the dust from the stones. The king's brothers were never far from him now. Stannis moved through the keep like a sword drawn halfway from its scabbard, speaking in curt commands, his face a thundercloud. Renly, by contrast, cultivated ease, but there was steel beneath the silk. His men guarded the gates and the halls, ready for any move from Lannister loyalists or the Gold Cloaks. In the Tower of the Hand, Ned met with Varys before dawn. The eunuch's eyes were shrewd, his voice soft as moth wings. "Lord Stark, the city balances on a knife's edge. The Lannisters are coiled, but not yet striking. Lord Tywin waits for your next move." Ned leaned on the table, exhaustion in his bones. "I do not trust the peace. It feels false." Tywin Lannister has never swallowed an insult quietly. Varys inclined his head. "Indeed not. He has spies within the city. A gold cloak went missing last night, one of Slint's men. His body was found in Flea Bottom, mouth stuffed with gold coins. A message, if ever I saw one." Ned's jaw tightened. "We cannot wait for the blow to fall. If war must come, let it be on our terms." Varys folded his hands. "And yet, war is a beast that cannot be leashed. Once loosed, it will devour more than Lannister and Stark. The city will bleed, and so will the realm. Is there no road but blood?" "Menwai." Ned's face was bleak. "If there is, I do not see it. I will send word to Winterfell. My men must be ready. Shall I speak to the Queen?" Varys asked. Ned shook his head. "No. Her pride is a wound she will not forgive, and her father's sword is drawn. But keep your eyes open. If she makes a move, I want to know before the blood spills." Varys bowed and slipped away, silent as breath. By noon, a small council was assembled. Stannis, Renly, Pycelle, Littlefinger, Varys, and the King's Hand. Robert sat at the head, bloodshot and unshaven, but every inch a king now that battle was at his gates. "We will not yield," he said. "Tywin sends word again. He demands the release of Cersei and Jaime, the return of the children. He threatens fire and steel if we refuse." Stannis' lip curled. "Let him come. The gates are shut, the walls strong. My men stand ready." "And now?" Renly was more cautious. "We have food for months, but gold is tight. The city will not starve, but it will suffer. The small folk grow restless. If the Lannisters find allies among the merchants or the Watch, the city could turn against us." Pycelle's voice was weak, but carried to every corner. "Peace must be the goal. If Lord Tywin wishes to parley, let him enter the city and speak his terms." Robert laughed bitterly. "If I let him inside, he'll slit my throat and claim the Iron Throne for his spawn." Littlefinger smiled. "We could meet him outside the walls, Your Grace, a show of strength, but also of honor. Invite him to a council of lords. If he wishes to talk, let him talk before the realm." Stannis agreed. "Let the realm see which lord pursues peace, and which pursues war." Robert nodded. "Very well. Ned, you and Stannis will ride to meet Tywin. Make it plain. We will not yield the Queen or Jaime, but the children will be fostered with honor, and no harm will come to Lannister blood if he keeps his sword sheathed." "Then?" Ned bowed. "As you command, Your Grace." The king caught his arm as he turned to go. "And Ned, if he means treachery, ride hard for the city. I will not have another trident at my gates." They rode out in the afternoon, a column of Baratheon and Stark men in black and gold, banners snapping in the wind. The city watched them go, faces pressed to every window and wall. Outside, the Lannister host was arrayed in disciplined silence, bright as a field of poppies in full sun. Ned saw the lion banners, the masked archers, the lines of knights, and the siege towers being readied on the rise. Tywin waited at the head of his line, armored in gold and crimson, his eyes like yellow glass. "Lord Stark, Lord Stannis." Tywin's voice was calm, almost lazy. "Does the king send terms, or just threats?" Ned's own words were cold as the wall. "The king sends peace. The Queen and Sir Jaime will stand trial, judged by their peers. The children are safe, and will be fostered with the highest honor. No harm will come to them unless your host brings war to the gates." Tywin's gaze never flickered. "The king has no authority over my blood. The realm will judge, yes, but it will judge the king who steals children, not the lord who protects his own. I demand their return." Stannis stepped forward, hand on sword. "Your demands will be answered with steel if you cross the river, Lord Tywin. There are eyes enough here to see whose pride brings ruin." "Then tell." A murmur rose from the lords behind Tywin. Kevan Lannister, Sir Adam Marbrand, Stafford Lannister, all with hands resting on sword hilts. Tywin turned to them, a small, hard smile on his lips. "The king has chosen blood, not honor. Let it be so." He signaled, and a white banner was raised. Parley done, war declared. Ned and Stannis rode back through gathering dusk, their company close around them. They heard the first Lannister horns before they reached the gates, and behind them, the ground shook with the tread of thousands. Inside the city, the bells began to ring. 3 quick, 1 long. War, 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 defense. The streets exploded into motion, men running to their posts, boys fetching arrows and water, city folk hurrying to the walls. Sansa watched from her window, Arya beside her, both pale and silent. In the holdfast, Tommen wept for his mother. Myrcella held him close, while Joffrey railed against his guards, shouting for swords and banners. Robert armored himself in black and gold, his warhammer shining as he strode through the keep. He found Ned in the armory, checking his sword, and clapped him on the back. "We've beaten them before, old friend. We'll do it again." Ned looked up, saw the fire in the king's eyes, and prayed to gods old and new that he would be right. At dawn, the siege began. Lannister catapults hurled stones against the city walls. Archers sent volleys arcing into the streets. The defenders replied in kind, flaming arrows, boiling oil, stones from the battlements. In the narrow lanes behind the gates, Ned's men held fast, while Stannis' Stormlanders manned the towers. The Gold Cloaks fought well, but Varys reported trouble. One company had tried to open a postern gate, only to be cut down by Stannis' men. Lannister Gold, at work again. For 2 days, the battle raged. Tywin's men assaulted the King's Gate, then the Lion Gate, then swept round to the riverside, where siege towers lurched toward the walls. But the city was built for war. Every alley a trap, every tower a fortress. Ned directed the defense with cold precision, while Robert thundered from the battlements, rallying men with his roar. Sansa watched the smoke rise, Arya begged for a sword, and Varys moved unseen through the keep, whispering, bribing, warning, died, caught. On the 3rd night, a fire broke out in the Street of Silk. A Lannister agent, it was said, trying to draw defenders from the gate. The flames leapt high, but the rain returned, smothering the blaze. Varys found Ned in the yard, mud-spattered and sleepless. "The city will not last much longer, my lord," Varys said. "The food stores burn, the water is fouled, the people are afraid. If Tywin has allies within, he may yet take the gates from within." Ned's eyes were hard. "He will not take the city. If he breaks the gates, we fall back to the keep. The king will not yield." Varys studied him, voice almost kind. "There are worse fates than surrender, Lord Stark." Ned said nothing. At dawn on the 4th day, Tywin sent a herald beneath a white flag. The boy, no older than Bran, read the message in a trembling voice. "Surrender the queen and her kin, or see the city put to the sword. No quarter will be given." Robert heard it, standing high atop the gate. "Tell your lord," he roared. "The king does not kneel. Let him come and take what he dares. Then see." The fighting resumed, fiercer than before. On the 5th night, a force of Lannister knights scaled the riverside walls under cover of darkness. In the confusion, Cersei vanished from her cell, her jailers found dead with golden coins clutched in their mouths. Panic raced through the keep. Jaime was still secured, but the queen was gone. Ned called the council together, his face grim. Varys slipped in, whispering, "I know where she goes. A secret passage beneath the sept. She flees to Tywin." Robert slammed his fist on the table. "Then let her run to her father. If Tywin would risk all for her, let him pay the price in blood." The siege pressed on. Cersei's escape emboldened the Lannisters. On the 7th day, a great assault came. spearheaded by knights in gilded armor. The gate held, but barely, and the city bled. Through it all, Ned never left the walls. Robert rode from gate to gate, his voice carrying over the roar of battle, defiance given form. Inside the city, order unraveled. Food riots broke out near the fish market. Varys agents snuffed them as best they could. Pycelle grew thin and sickly, sending ravens with desperate pleas for aid. Renly talked of flight, to Dragonstone, to Storm's End, anywhere but here. But Stannis brooded, unbending. The Queen's children were moved to a new cell each night, shadowed by stark men, their faces hollow. On the 10th day, the city's bells tolled for the dying and the dead. Tywin's men battered the Lion Gate with a great ram, while archers fired burning arrows into the market below. Ned ordered the last reserves to the walls. The people prayed, or cursed, or wept. The city itself seemed to groan. Then, as the sun set in a haze of blood and smoke, a horn sounded in the west. To the astonishment of all, a new banner rose on the horizon. Tully Silver Trout, Aeron Falcon, Tyrell Rose. The River Lords, summoned by Ned's ravens, had come at last, 1,000 spears glittering in the dying light. Tywin's host reeled, caught between the walls and this new foe. The Lannister banners began to fall back, harried by horse and arrow. Inside the city, a wild cheer rose. Robert wept tears of joy, and Sansa clung to Arya and prayed. Ned allowed himself a single, shuddering breath of hope. But even as the Lannisters retreated, Ned knew it was not victory, not truly. The realm was broken. Wounds like these would not heal in a single season, or perhaps ever. The city was half ruined, its people starved and haunted. The Queen was at large, her father's vengeance only delayed. And far to the north, Winterfell waited, watching, waiting, wondering what news the winds would carry home. That night, as fires still smoldered on the city's rim, Ned stood atop the battlements and watched the stars reappear. Varys joined him, silent for a time. Together they looked out over King's Landing, and the wreckage of so much hope. "The realm is saved for now," Varys said quietly. "But I wonder, at what cost?" Ned nodded. "At every cost. There is no victory, only survival. We will pay for this for 100 years." And the Master of Whisperers smiled, very faintly, as the night pressed in on the broken city, and the Game of Thrones, bloodied but unbowed, began anew. Don K. I ding. Rainwater dripped from the broken gargoyles of the Red Keep, spattering onto stone and washing the blood and soot in sluggish rivulets down to the city's ravaged streets. Atop the battlements, Ned Stark watched the battered Lannister banners withdraw beyond the reach of arrow shot. Winding west toward the Gold Road, the ruined leavings of Tywin's host trailing after them. Dead horses, smashed wagons, the wounded howling as they were ferried away in crude carts. Farther off, fresh camps were rising. Tully Trout and Aeron Falcon, and the golden rose of House Tyrell, planted like a new order on the trampled earth. The sight ought to have brought him comfort, but instead his heart twisted tighter. The city had survived, but there was no victory here, only endurance. The bells tolled low and steady for the dead, the sound mingling with the ceaseless hammering of rain on slate and shield. It was dusk before Ned finally descended from the wall, boots caked with mud, gray in hair and eyes and spirit. He found his daughters in the Godswood, Arya darting among the roots with a stick she called Needle, Sansa sitting quietly, hands folded in her lap, the air of the place heavy with the wet green hush that reminded him of Winterfell. He knelt beside Sansa, brushing sodden hair from her face. "It's over then?" she asked, voice thin as thread. "For now," Ned said. "But the city is wounded, and wounds take time to heal." Arya appeared, cheeks dirty, eyes shining fierce. "Are the Lannisters gone?" "Gone, but not defeated. Tywin Lannister will not forget this, nor forgive it. We must be wary. The peace is a brittle thing." That night, the small council met in the king's solar. The air stank of sweat, damp wool, and scorched wine. Robert sat at the head of the table, shoulders slumped in his black and gold doublet, fingers toying with the shattered haft of his old warhammer. He looked every bit a man beset by ghosts. "We have won," he muttered. "But the cost? 7 hells. What have we done?" Stannis answered grimly. "We have defended your crown, brother, but the realm is fractured. The Lannisters retreat, but half the city would have opened the gates to them if they thought it would save their shops and sons." Renly added, "And what of the small folk? Riots in the fish market, half the granaries torched. The Tyrells and Tullys expect reward for their aid. Lands, gold, seats at your table. The debts will eat us alive." Pycelle dabbed his brow. "Famine is a certainty unless the granaries are restocked. The river lords will help, if proper gratitude is shown." Robert turned his haunted eyes on Ned. "And you, old friend, what do you say?" Ned's voice was low. "I say we have bought time, nothing more. The queen is fled, her father plotting in the west. The children are still within these walls, and the city is a powder keg. There is no peace, while Cersei Lannister draws breath." Then a silence fell. Varys, smooth and shadowy, finally spoke. "We must consider the children's fate carefully. Joffrey is not the king's true-born son, yet he is known to all as prince. If he dies, the city will rise. If he is crowned, Stannis and Renly may rebel, and the Lannisters will never rest. Shall we send them to fosterage, or keep them as hostages?" Robert's hand clenched on his goblet. "They are not my blood, but I will not have their deaths on my soul. Let them be kept safe, apart in the custody of loyal men." Stannis' jaw worked. "There is justice yet to be done. Cersei must answer for her crimes, and if Tywin marches again—" Ned interrupted. "Let us not speak of war tonight. Let the city bury its dead. Tomorrow we can send riders to every lord who aided us. The rest will decide whom to follow by who feeds them first." Then when the council adjourned, Varys found Ned alone by the hearth, the fire's glow soft on his tired face. "You are troubled, my lord. Too much blood. Too many secrets. Even now I feel as though I walk through a dream of knives." Varys inclined his head. "The realm owes you a debt, Lord Stark. Yet debts are dangerous things, especially when owed to the wrong men. Is there no road but war, Lord Varys?" "There are always roads, my lord. Most are less traveled for good reason." A ghost of a smile. Then Varys faded back into the shadows. That night, Ned dreamed of wolves running through winter woods, chasing shadows that vanished as soon as they were near. He woke in darkness, unsure if it was the storm or something else that roused him. A tap at the door. Soft. Urgent. He rose, sword in hand, and opened to find Sir Barristan Selmy, white cloak gleaming in the gloom. "My lord, there's been an attempt. Someone tried for the children." Ned's blood ran cold. "Sansa, Arya, they are safe. It was Joffrey. Someone tried to smuggle him from his chambers. The guards stopped them, but 2 are dead. The boy is unharmed for now." Ned pulled on his cloak. "I will see him." He found the prince in his room, eyes wide, hair disheveled, clutching a dagger with knuckles white as bone. Joffrey glared at Ned with sullen pride. "They tried to take me. I heard them. One had my mother's colors on his sleeve. Where is she? Where's my grandfather?" "Your mother is gone from the city, Prince. You are safe. No one will harm you here." Joffrey's voice shook. "They want to kill me." Ned knelt beside him, lowering his voice. "No one will harm you while I draw breath. But you must be brave, for your brother and sister's sake. The realm is watching." Joffrey's lower lip trembled, but he nodded. When Ned left, he posted Stark guards at the door, men had known since boyhood, men he would trust with his own children's lives. By sunrise, the city knew of the attempt. Rumors spread like wildfire. The Queen had sent assassins. The King meant to kill the Lannister heirs. Tywin Lannister would return with fire and sword. Riots broke out again near the docks, quelled only by the arrival of Riverlord men and a promise of bread and safety. Lord Tully rode through the streets in person, handing out loaves and silver, while Tyrell knights escorted the bakers' carts from the granaries. The small folks' mood shifted, cautious hope flickering. For the first time, Ned saw the city's heart turning not toward a golden lion, but toward the trout and rose, the falcon and direwolf. In Maegor's holdfast, Sansa spent the morning pacing, peering through the heavy glass at the ruined city. Arya sat sharpening her blade, singing to herself, making faces at Tommen, who tried not to cry. Myrcella watched them both with wary eyes, arms around her brother. A summons came from the king. Ned gathered his cloak, steeling himself for yet another council of crisis. Robert sat with Stannis, Renly, Ser Barristan, Varys, and Pycelle. Littlefinger was absent, out among the guild halls and counting houses, securing new loans to keep the city's larders from emptying. The king's face was haggard. "Word comes from the west," he said. "Cersei is seen at Harrenhal, under Tywin's banner. She calls for vengeance. Her letters say the king means to murder her children, that she's the true queen, that the city is held by rebels. Tywin musters fresh levies. If he marches again," Stannis interrupted, "we will be ready. The city stands. We have food for now, and the riverlords and Tyrells are loyal. If Tywin attacks, he faces a united front." Renly added, "It would be wise to send the children away. Dragonstone is strong and safe. The small folk would see your mercy, brother." Ned nodded. "Let them go, for their own sake." With the Lannister children at Dragonstone, Tywin has less reason to besiege the city. If he loves them more than vengeance, he may yet yield. Robert's shoulders sagged. "So be it, Stannis, see it done." The plan was set. Under cover of night, the Lannister children, Joffrey, Myrcella, and Tommen, were to be escorted by Stark and Tyrell knights to Dragonstone. Sansa and Arya would remain with their father, though Sansa wept at parting from Joffrey, her last thread of a girlish dream unraveling at last. Arya watched silently, but her hand stayed near her little sword. The city held its breath as the party slipped out by moonlight, riding swift and silent. Ned watched them go from atop the battlements, heart torn by relief and foreboding. All night he paced the walls, haunted by what might come. By morning word came. The party had reached the Rosby Road unchallenged. The children were safe, for now. That same day, envoys arrived from the Vale, from Riverrun, from Highgarden. Lords and banners filled the city, each seeking audience with the king, each demanding a voice in the coming peace. Robert held court daily, growing grimmer with every meeting. The debts of war weighed heavy. The promises of land and gold grew impossible to fulfill. The city's scars would not be healed in a single moon. Yet for a time, there was quiet. The Lannisters licked their wounds in the west. The city rebuilt, grain and fish brought in under heavy guard. Lord Tyrell remained, his knights in gleaming armor, gold buying loyalty and peace in the markets. Lord Tully watched the docks, errand men held the gates, and the direwolf's banner flew above the keep. One night, Ned found Varys waiting by the Godswood Pond, watching the moon ripple on black water. They stood together, silent. "Will it last?" Ned asked at last. Varys shook his head. "Nothing lasts, my lord. But perhaps you have won the realm a little peace, and time for wounds to close." Ned's eyes were tired. Too much was lost. Too much yet to lose. "Then," Varys smiled faintly, "you may be right. But for now, the game is yours." And far to the west, in the halls of Casterly Rock, Cersei Lannister nursed her vengeance. Tywin sharpened his pride, and a new storm gathered, unseen but inexorable, as the wheels of fate ground on toward the next turning. King's Landing, bruised and battered, slumbered beneath the rain, uncertain and uneasy, but alive. And for one brief, fragile season, the realm remembered what it was to hope. A.K. The storm had blown itself out, but in its wake, the city felt hollow, the very air left raw by lightning. In the days that followed, a strange quiet fell over King's Landing. Smoke rose still from the ruins near the fish market in Flea Bottom, where fire and riot had passed like a plague. Ash and rainwater caked the stones. The scent of charred grain and sour meat clung to every alley, masking the sharper odors of blood and fear. The Red Keep, was a fortress of anxious routines. Messengers darted along its corridors, bearing news of Riverlord's feasts, Tyrell harvests, and the slow, ugly rebirth of the city's trade. But the true business was in the council chambers, where the king and his battered court tried to govern a realm whose wounds would not scab over. Ned Stark sat with the small council from dawn until dusk, eyes hooded, fingers tapping the table as lists of dead, missing, and newly arrived were read out. His face was thinner, hair streaked with gray, yet there was steel in him still. When bickering flared, Stannis rigid on protocol, Renly urging reconciliation, Pycelle forever moaning over the city's shortfalls, and listened, weighed, and spoke when necessary. He gave the appearance of calm, but every moment felt as if it was borrowed. Each argument a crack in a dam holding back a flood. The city's new peace was a shallow thing. Bread was distributed daily by Tully men at the gates. Tyrell gold ensured the bakers' ovens never grew cold. The market squares bustled again, though watchful knights patrolled among the stalls. There were more weddings than funerals now, and even laughter could sometimes be heard after dark. Yet every shadow whispered of Cersei's flight and Tywin's rage. Every rumor grew in the telling. Tywin recruiting mercenaries from Old Town, Cersei seeking aid from Dorne, the Lannister host swelling anew behind the Golden Tooth. Robert Baratheon grew gaunt, the lines in his face deepening each day. The crown sat heavy on his brow. He drank less now, spoke more softly, as if waiting for an axe to fall. He rode the city at dawn, gloved and hooded, to see the damage for himself. Sometimes Ned rode with him. They spoke little, but in the silence there was something like trust, a memory of old friendship, and perhaps a little hope. Ned's daughters spent their days in uneasy captivity. Sansa walked the gardens with Myrcella, her innocence weathered but not destroyed. She learned the names of flowers, the stories of old kings, and sometimes sang for the wounded in the yard. Arya vanished at every chance, running with the kitchen boys or fencing with broomsticks behind the stables. Ned let her go. She needed wildness, and there was too little of it left. One evening, as the sun burned low, word reached the Red Keep that envoys from Casterly Rock had arrived under a flag of truce. The Lannister party was small, just 5 knights in crimson and gold, and a woman in a hooded cloak. The city watched as they wound their way up the hill, wary and silent. They were brought before the king at sunset. Robert received them in the throne room, flanked by Stannis, Renly, Ned, and Varys, while Sir Barristan and half a dozen stormlords ringed the walls. The woman cast back her hood and stood proud, golden hair falling loose, a Lannister to the bone, though she was not Cersei. "My name is Lady Jenna Lannister," she said, voice calm as winter glass. "I come on behalf of Lord Tywin. I bear terms." Robert's eyes narrowed. "Speak them then." Jenna inclined her head, surveying the room. "Lord Tywin offers peace. The Lannister host will not march against the city. In return, you will release Sir Jaime and Queen Cersei into his custody. The king's children, Joffrey, Myrcella, and Tommen, are to be allowed safe passage to Casterly Rock when the war's debts are paid. The Lannisters will recognize Robert Baratheon as king and will pay restitution for the damages to the city." Demter one. A murmur swept the chamber. Renly's lips curled in skepticism. Stannis frowned, and Varys' hands folded together in the shadows. Unreadable. Ned studied Jenna's face, looking for the trap. "And what of justice?" he asked. "The crimes of Queen Cersei and Sir Jaime cannot be washed away with gold." Jenna met his gaze without flinching. "There has been enough blood, Lord Stark. My brother is your prisoner. My niece and nephews live by your grace. Shall we kill more children to avenge old wounds, or shall we be wiser than our fathers?" Pycelle muttered, "The city cannot bear another siege. The small folk." Stannis cut him off. "Justice must be seen, not bargained away." But Robert spoke over them all, voice tired but resolute. "We will consider Lord Tywin's terms. You and your knights will be guests here until we decide." Jenna bowed again. We will wait. Afterward, the council broke up in angry knots. Renly advocating negotiation, Stannis threatening to walk out if the Lannisters were not punished, Pycelle dithering, Littlefinger smirking as he recounted the cost of another war. Ned sat alone with Robert in the king's solar. The fire burned low. Robert poured wine but barely touched it. "What do you think, Ned?" Robert asked. Ned's face was bleak. "It's a clever offer. If we refuse, Tywin will have an excuse to attack. If we accept, the city might have peace, but at the price of justice. And I do not trust Tywin Lannister to keep any promise." Robert rubbed his eyes. "If I refuse, half the lords in the city will call me a butcher. If I accept, Stannis will never forgive me. Gods, I never wanted this throne. Now." They sat in silence as the moon rose. In the days that followed, King's Landing was abuzz with speculation. Lady Jenna and her knights were given quarters in Maegor's Holdfast. The city watched their every move. Lords and envoys argued day and night. The Tyrells sent word that they would back any settlement that brought the city peace. The Tullys held out for harsh terms. The Arryns urged caution. The small folk cared only for food and quiet. Ned met secretly with Stannis and Renly. "If Robert gives Cersei and Jaime back to Tywin, we lose all leverage," Stannis argued. "She will be queen in the West and plot her vengeance. The Lannister boy, Joffrey, may yet rally support. They are vipers all." Renly shook his head. "If we keep them, we get another war, and maybe the city burns. Is the blood of one more child worth that?" Ned thought of Sansa and Arya. "If there's another way, I do not see it." The king must choose. The final council was a storm of words. Voices were raised, threats made. At last, Robert silenced them all. "Enough. I will have peace. The Lannisters will pay the city's debts and withdraw their host. Sir Jaime and Cersei will be sent to Casterly Rock, but the children remain in royal custody until Tywin's good faith is proven. If they break faith, we answer in kind." The council is dismissed. Stannis rose, stone-faced. "You may win your peace, brother. You will lose your honor." Renly said nothing, but his green eyes were cold. Ned bowed his head. "As you command, your grace." Preparations were made. In the Red Keep, Sir Jaime and Cersei, haggard, proud, eyes burning, were brought forth in chains. They said nothing to Ned as he escorted them to the gates, but Cersei's look promised vengeance beyond words. The Lannister knights received them. Jenna Lannister thanked the king in her brother's name and swore that no harm would come to the city. The city watched as the Lannister party rode out beneath a white banner, flanked by Baratheon and Tyrell riders. Sansa watched from a balcony, tears in her eyes, Arya silent at her side. Ned rested a hand on each girl's shoulder, feeling the years he had aged in the last moon. The Lannister children remained under heavy guard. Housed in the royal apartments, Joffrey glared at everyone, but did not speak. Tommen wept for his mother, and Myrcella sat silent, her hands folded in her lap. For a time a strange calm returned. Markets opened again. The wounded healed or left the city. The Tyrells distributed food. The Tullys kept order at the gates. Robert took to hunting in the Kingswood, sometimes with Ned, sometimes alone. In the council, Pycelle droned on about debts and drought. Renly spent more time with the city's guildsmen, currying favor and rumor. Stannis withdrew, silent and cold, his honor heavy as a millstone. Varys continued his whispering, moving through the halls as softly as breath. One afternoon, a raven arrived. Lord Tywin's hand. It bore a sealed letter, gold leaf on crimson wax. Robert broke it open in council. The lords crowded close. "To His Grace Robert Baratheon, King of the Andals, the Rhoynar, and the First Men, I accept your terms. My host will not march. The Lannisters will pay all agreed debts. My grandchildren shall remain as guests of the crown. I trust you will see to their comfort, as I will to your kin, should they pass west. Let there be peace. Lord Tywin Lannister." Hand of the Queen. Ned watched Robert's shoulders slump with relief. "It is done then," the king said. For now, the days grew longer. the city's wounds began to scab. But every night, Ned Stark dreamed of cold wind in the north, and the sound of wolves howling across empty fields. One dawn, he stood on the battlements with Arya at his side, both wrapped in fur against the chill. Far below, the city moved in fits and starts, broken but enduring. "Will we go home soon?" Arya asked. Ned did not answer. Instead, he looked out to the horizon where the rain-washed sky was clear at last, and wondered what price the realm would pay when peace was bought with secrets, and the next storm gathered beyond the mountains of the west. The heat of summer settled heavy upon King's Landing as weeks bled into months, and the city struggled toward uneasy recovery. Sun-baked stone reeked of spilled wine, pitch, and the lingering ghosts of fire. In the morning, long lines waited at the bakeries and wells. By dusk, the market seethed with gossip, rumor, and the scent of strange fruits from Dorne and the Reach. At night, the shadows grew thick, and the cries of cats and children echoed through the labyrinthine alleys. Though the walls had held and the banners of Tywin Lannister had faded westward, there was a sense in the air that nothing was finished. Within the Red Keep, Lord Eddard Stark carried the cares of the realm upon his shoulders. Council meetings ran late into the night, voices rising and falling in bitter debate over bread, justice, gold, and the peace so many doubted. Robert Baratheon, once the storm, seemed now the eye. His fury spent and his presence mournfully calm. He drank less, spoke little, haunted the palace and the gardens as if searching for something long lost. Sometimes Ned joined him, silent, pacing the rosewalk above the city, or standing by his side as the king stared across the Blackwater and remembered days of laughter and steel. Letters arrived daily, some with praise for the king's wisdom, others couched in veiled threats or petitions for justice. Lords Tyrell and Tully pressed for their rewards. The Reach sent wagons of grain and casks of honeyed wine. From River Run came oaths of friendship, and warnings that the Lannisters were not idle. That scouts glimpsed riders gathering near the Golden Tooth and gold flowing through the fingers of minor lords. Varys brought word of unrest in the city, of old alliances shifting. Littlefinger, always smiling, counted coin and murmured about opportunity. Stannis stalked the halls in silent judgment, often absent from council, sometimes gone for days. Nin did not ask where. Renly, bright as ever, wooed the guildmasters, organized pageants and feasts, hoping to remind the small folk what peace could taste like. The queen's children remained in Maegor's holdfast, 3 pale, wary hostages. Joffrey had lost his arrogance. The shadow of death and defeat had whittled his pride to a nervous, smoldering silence. He spent hours staring out the window, tracing the scars left by siege and fire. Tommen and Myrcella, bewildered and homesick, clung to each other and to Sansa, who had become their friend and comfort, her own grief gentled by their need. Arya, less patient, ran wild. She climbed walls and trees, slipped the guards at every chance, and taught Tommen to spar with a stick, while Myrcella watched with wide, worried eyes. Ned let her run, trusting Sirio's lessons and Arya's instincts. He had lost too much to cages and rules. It was nearly the end of the second month when trouble came again, as trouble always did. Varys arrived one evening in the Godswood, where Ned walked beneath the willows with Arya. The eunuch's face was grave, his tone cautious. "My Lord Hand, I have news from the west. Lord Tywin has recalled his bannermen to Casterly Rock. The Golden Company, sellswords of some repute, are said to be in talks with his envoys." Ned's expression hardened. "Mercenaries. The city is not ready for another war. Food is short, the walls are untested. Tywin's gold runs deep. He might buy the city from beneath us if he cannot take it by force." "Now." Ned looked up at the branches, thinking of the north, the cold surety of home. "Tell Robert." Quietly, Robert received the news with a sigh, pouring wine and slumping by the fire. "If Tywin wants my head, let him come for it. We will answer with steel. I am done trading gold for peace." But Varys's warnings could not be ignored. Ned met with Sir Barristan, with Renly and Lord Tully. and began discreetly mustering men from the riverlands and the Reach. Grain stores were counted, blacksmiths worked through the night, and city watch patrols doubled in the poorest districts. The queen's children were moved to new rooms, Sansa with them. Arya howled at the news but obeyed, muttering about wolves in cages. The tension rippled outward. Pettier Baelish vanished for 3 days, then returned with word that gold cloaks in the western wards were accepting bribes. Stannis shut himself away with ravens and ledgers. Renly threw a feast in the hall, toasting the king, the river lords, and the city's new hope, while in corners, knights whispered about the next storm. On a rainy morning, a letter came from Casterly Rock, sealed in crimson and gold. Robert read it at the council table, his face carved from granite. To His Grace Robert Baratheon, King of the Andals, the Rhoynar, and the First Men, you hold my blood. I hold your peace. Return the children of my house, or I will take them with fire and gold. My patience is at an end. Tywin Lannister. Hand of the Queen. The council erupted. Pycelle wrung his hands and pleaded for negotiation. Stannis demanded the city's defenses be doubled. Renly counseled delay. Ned spoke last, voice low but clear. If we yield now, we yield forever. The city's faith in the crown is new and fragile. If we send the Lannister children west, there will be no peace, only the promise of more threats, more demands. We must hold fast. Robert agreed. We keep the children, and we keep the peace by strength. Let Tywin come, if he dares. The next days crawled by, every hour heavy with threat. Ravens came from the north and east, more banners marching, some for the crown, others for coin or for vengeance. Merchants closed their shops at dusk. The inns filled with hedge knights and would-be sellswords. The city's heart beat fast, uncertain. Then one night, as Ned prepared for sleep, there came a knock. Sansa, pale and trembling, clutched a letter. It's from Casterly Rock, Father. I found it beneath my door. Ned read it at once. The words were few, the meaning plain. I will have my children, or I will have your daughter's head. See. Ned's hands tightened. He sent for guards. For Varys. For Sir Barristan. Sansa was moved again. Arya sat under watch. Myrcella and Tommen sobbed. Joffrey cursed and begged to be sent home. And the keep bristled with anxiety. In the shadows, Varys whispered, Tywin's hand is here. Cersei's too, perhaps. If the city falls, there will be no mercy. Ned set the gates shut at night, tripled the guards at every door, and called on the city's loyal lords to stand ready. For the first time since the siege, he considered sending his daughters away, to River Run, to White Harbor, anywhere beyond Tywin's reach. But there was no time. On the third night after the threat, the city woke to the sound of fire bells. Flames devoured a row of inns by the fish market. In the confusion, a band of sellswords attempted to breach Maegor's holdfast. Battle erupted in the corridors. Steel against steel, shouts and screams. Ned, roused from sleep, rushed to the hall with sword drawn. He found Sir Barristan already fighting, white cloak streaked with blood. Sansa and Arya were found huddled with Myrcella and Tommen. Safe behind a barricaded door, Joffrey, cut off with a single guard, had fought like a lion cub, bloodied and shrill, but survived. The attackers, outnumbered and desperate, were cut down. One taken alive. Ned knelt by the captive, who spat blood and cursed him. The lion's gold buys more than swords, Stark. He will not stop. He wants the children, and he wants your head. Ned rose. Tell Lord Tywin that the North remembers, and so does the crown. The weeks that followed saw no respite. The city was a nest of hornets, violence flaring and subsiding, trust eroding. Riverlord men patrolled with Tyrell knights. The city's walls bristled with watchful archers. The king became a ghost, seldom seen, issuing decrees through Ned and Renly. Stannis, stern and silent, guarded the grain stores and arsenals, never far from his brother's side. Twice, Casterly Rock sent envoys, demanding, pleading, threatening in turn. Twice, Robert refused. Each refusal brought a fresh attack, poisoned bread in the kitchens. blades in the shadows, rumors of riot in the poorest wards. Through it all, Varys moved unseen, gathering whispers, rooting out traitors. Littlefinger prospered, as ever, and offered advice few trusted. One stifling evening, Arya burst into Ned's chamber, breathless. "Father, there's something you must see." She led him to the Godswood, where a boy knelt beside the pool, blood trickling from his temple. Ned bent close, hearing the boy's last, fevered words. "A woman in gold. Cersei, beneath the city." A secret way. Ned called for guards, for Varys, for Barristan. A search revealed the entrance in the cellars below Maegor's Holdfast, a tunnel winding down into the rock, wide enough for a queen to flee or an army to enter. It stank of rot and damp, but it was real, and it led west toward the river. Varys whispered, "1,000 years of secrets in these stones, my lord. We must block the way." Ned agreed. The tunnel was sealed with stone and iron, guarded by men loyal to Winterfell and the Eyrie. After that, the city slept less soundly, yet it endured. Food trickled in, wounds slowly healed. Sansa grew into a quiet, thoughtful girl. Arya, restless but fierce, trained with bow and blade. Myrcella and Tommen clung to their routines, while Joffrey learned caution, if not kindness. The banners of House Tyrell and Tully continued to fly above the gates, and the direwolf kept watch from the highest tower. On the first day of autumn, a raven arrived from White Harbor. News of an early snow in the north, of peace at Winterfell, of hope that one day soon the Starks would come home. Ned read the letter as the sun set over the city. He stood with Arya at his side and watched as the sky flamed crimson and gold above the battered sprawl of King's Landing. For now, at least, the city endured. But Ned knew the wheel was only pausing, not broken, and in the quiet, he listened for the next storm gathering. Far beyond the western hills, where the lion waited with teeth bared and gold gleaming in the dark. A.K. Unusual activity has been detected from your device. Try again later. 9440A33 BB98 729 Bine. OK. MD. Unusual activity has been detected from your device. Try again later. 9449,550 seat 72 Bion. Ka. Autumn deepened, and with it, the city's scars hardened to something like resolve. In the slanting gold of late sun, King's Landing could almost seem unchanged. The markets rumbled, bells tolled for evensong, fishermen mended their nets on the wharves. But to any who truly watched, it was a city haunted, wary, with wounds still raw beneath the scabs. Rumors bred faster than rats in the hayloft, of lions massing in the west, of dragons in distant Essos, of new gods rising in the alleys at night. Trust had become the rarest coin, and even the Red Keep stones felt their age. Ned Stark moved through those days like a man half in shadow, his duties a grindstone. The King's Council grew smaller. Stannis had left abruptly, sailing to Dragonstone with barely a word. Renly lingered, but his laughter had become careful, watchful, and he spent more time among the goldsmiths and city guilds than with his kin. Robert drank still, but rarely in company, his solitude a wall no jest or oath could breach. Pycelle nursed his grievances and his potions, and Littlefinger smiled in corners, eyes like knives. Yet with the turning of the leaves came small mercies. The last of the harvest wagons rumbled in from the Reach, Tyrell guards in emerald and silver at their flanks. Tully and Arryn patrols kept order on the roads. The price of bread fell, slowly. The price of blood, more slowly still. The Lannister children remained sequestered within the Red Keep. Joffrey grew tall but gaunt, his temper sour, his days given to brooding over old wounds and writing letters he never sent. Myrcella grew into grace, a poised and gentle presence in the solar where Sansa kept her company. Tommen, still young, made fast friends with Arya, though their lessons with the bow or at Savas often ended in shrieks of laughter that drew frowns from their nurses and a rare smile from Ned himself. One evening, as chill settled into the courtyards, Varys arrived in Ned's study, his robes rustling like dry leaves. He closed the door behind him and did not smile. "My Lord Hand," he began. "News from the west. Lord Tywin stirs. Gold flows again to the Stormlands and the Westerlands. I have word that men of House Clegane ride to gather new sellswards across the narrow sea." Ned's jaw tightened. "And the Golden Company?" "In Pentos. Yet. But restless." Varys's eyes glittered. "A raven also comes from Riverrun. Lord Hoster urges caution. He asks if peace is truly possible with Tywin's blood still on the field and Cersei's shadow over the realm." Ned's fingers drummed the desk. "We have bought a season, perhaps two, but not a lasting peace. The Lannisters will not rest while their children are hostages." Varys nodded. "Nor will the small folk, if war comes again. There is talk of a new brotherhood in the Riverlands. Outlaws who style themselves the king's true men, sworn to your cause. Their numbers grow. A rebel band will not win the peace," Ned said. But the knowledge gave him no comfort. He met with Robert that night in the King's Solar. Robert had a scroll in his lap, unread, a cup of watered wine forgotten on the table. The fire burned low. "Tywin sends for his children again," Robert said, voice rough. Every word a threat, but always couched in terms of honor and blood. "I am weary of it, Ned. I would have sent them back, but I cannot trust him not to take up arms as soon as they are west." Ned sat across from him, the weight of the North in his posture. "If we yield now, the realm will see us cowed. Tywin will name himself regent for his grandchildren, and half the lords will follow." Robert grunted, running a hand through thinning hair. "Would that I had been slain at the Trident. Better a clean death than this endless gnawing." "We endure," Ned said. "That is what the realm needs from its king." Robert barked a laugh, but there was no joy in it. "Let the ravens fly. Let them all come. I will face Tywin in open field before I yield to his threats." For a time, the king's council moved with a brittle purpose. Tyrell and Tully and Voice dined nightly with the king and Ned, arguing over marriage pacts, land grants, and the balance of power in a realm where the Lannisters sulked in exile. The Gold Cloaks' loyalty was bought anew, their captains rewarded with coin and titles. Grain ships, for once, docked without incident. But at night, in the smoky rooms above the docks and the dark taverns of Flea Bottom, the city's pulse remained feverish. Petyr Baelish sent word to Ned of new plots. A baker's son claiming descent from Aerys Targaryen gathering followers in the alleys. A Lysine merchant offering to sell wildfire to any who would pay. Various little birds sang of Cersei's spies slipping through the crowds, bearing messages sewn into their hems. One cold dawn, Arya shook Ned awake. "Father, come. There's men in the Godswood, and one of them's got a lion on his cloak." Ned dressed swiftly and followed, sword belted, guards close. By the pool he found a young man kneeling, golden hair, fine cloak, eyes swollen with weeping. Tommen stood a little way off, frightened but unharmed. When the boy rose, Ned saw the lion ring on his finger. Martin Lannister, Tywin's cousin, last seen as a page at Casterly Rock. "My Lord Stark," the boy said, voice trembling. "I come as a supplicant. My uncle, he has sent me to plead for the children. He says he will ransom any you name. Hostages from the west, gold castles, anything if you return Joffrey, Tommen, and Myrcella." Ned studied him, searching for deceit. "If I refuse?" Martin's jaw trembled, but he held Ned's gaze. "Then he will come. And he will not come alone." The message was clear. Ned sent Martin to the council and posted extra guards on the children's quarters. The news set the keep to buzzing. Renly argued that gold was gold, and a handful of hostages could buy a lasting peace. Stannis, reached by Raven on Dragonstone, sent back a curt reply. "No trust for Lannisters, no peace for traitors." Pycelle dithered, Pycelle wept, but Ned held firm. "The children remain. Tell Tywin his offer is refused, but no harm will come to the hostages he sends." That night, Varys slipped into Ned's chambers again. "There is another path, my lord. The city can survive, but only if the lords unite. If Robert takes a new queen, from the Reach perhaps, he will have a new heir, and the Lannister claim will lose its teeth." No. Ned considered the counsel, weighing its justice against its cunning. I will not trade one child for another's peace, but I will ask Robert. Robert refused at first, then brooded for days. Rumors flew of Marguerite Tyrell, of a Blackwood daughter, even of a princess from the east. But nothing was settled, and the city's tension deepened. As autumn waned, Tywin Lannister moved at last. Scouts brought word of armies gathering in the west. Knights in Lannister crimson, sellswords from the Stepstones, and companies of archers from the Reach, bought or cowed. The Golden Lion banner was sighted on the King's Road. 2,000 men marching, more to follow. The city shuddered, old wounds gaping anew. Ned summoned the lords to council. Tully, Tyrell, Royce, Redwyne Dodai. Some urged open battle. Others counseled more hostages, more gold. Sansa and Arya were sent to the innermost chambers of the keep. Myrcella and Tommen went with them, while Joffrey, restless and angry, demanded sword and horse. At sunset, as the lords debated, a raven arrived from the Eyrie. Lysa Arryn, cold as ever, wrote only, "The Vale will not march. Keep the peace you have bought." The walls closed in. Ned met Varys by torchlight, walking the ramparts as the wind howled off Blackwater Bay. "The city cannot withstand another siege, my lord," Varys murmured. "The people are weary. The gold cloaks grumble. If Tywin breaks the gates, we will hold," Ned said, more from need than faith. Varys's eyes were soft. "You are a good man, Lord Stark. I hope the realm is worthy of you." Then ciao. The night before Tywin's host reached the city, Ned spent a long hour with his daughters and the Lannister children. Sansa prayed aloud for peace, Arya for a sword in every hand. Myrcella and Tommen wept quietly, while Joffrey paced, refusing to meet Ned's eyes. "Whatever comes," Ned told them, "you are not at fault. Remember that, you are children. I will not see harm done to you if I can prevent it." At dawn, the banners appeared on the horizon. A river of red and gold, spears bristling, drums beating. The walls bristled with defenders, bows strung, cauldrons of oil ready. The city shivered as horns called the muster. Ned climbed the battlements with Sir Barristan and Renly, watched the banners draw close. At the head rode Tywin Lannister, golden and cold. Martin rode beside him, now pale as milk. A white banner was raised. Ned rode out with Robert and 100 knights, Sansa and Arya watching from the walls. The army stared, silent. In the field, the old enemies faced each other. Tywin's face was stone. "My lord Hand," he said, "do you yield my kin?" Ned shook his head. "Not until the king's peace is sworn and the blood you threatened withdrawn." Robert, gaunt and grim, spoke over him. "No more threats, Tywin. No more letters. Swear your peace, and your grandchildren will live in comfort and honor. Break your oath, and the realm will unite against you." Tywin's jaw clenched. "If harm comes to my blood, the world will not hold the vengeance I unleash." Ned's voice was clear as winter. "Swear or march. But if you march, you make war on all the realm." The wind picked up, banners snapping. Tywin stared a long moment, then turned away. "We will speak again," he said. And so he rode, the golden banners rippling behind him, the city bracing itself once more for whatever tomorrow might bring. In the gathering dusk, Ned Stark looked out across the fields of waiting men, and wondered how long a realm could stand on the edge before falling, and whether peace was ever anything but the brief hush between storms.